A very good afternoon and thank you for joining us on BeeTv Global News at 12. I am Ruth Obodu and now the news in detail. People walk along modded roads scavenging the wreckage for food. Others jump into damaged stores in the hope of finding bottled water or other supplies. As the death toll rises, residents of Black River are still searching for loved ones while they also battle to survive. Days after Hurricane Melissa made its Jamaica port city ground zero of the devastation seen across the Caribbean, the reports.
Residents here say they have been living in a state of chaos for the last 3 days since Melissa slammed into them as one of the most powerful Category 5 storms ever recorded in the region. The fierce winds and storm surge that barreled through have decimated nearly everything, leaving roads unstable and a trail of destruction that has left people increasingly desperate and isolated, with no electricity or running water. Capsized boats lie topside, brick buildings are split in half, giant sheets of metal are twisted between tree branches, vehicles sit in crumbled pieces. Residents who spoke to newsmen said they have seen no aid trucks in the area so far and described having to eat what food they can find in debris by the roadside in the coastal town, nearly 150 kilometers west of Kingston. Others made their way inside battered supermarkets, taking what they could find for themselves. Some who climbed on top of one partially destroyed market tossed food and bottles of water down below, where people gathered with arms outstretched. One couple said they owned multiple stores in the area, several of which had been looted. They are now standing guard outside one of their stores in the hope of preventing future thefts. Survival is the primary concern on most people's mind here. The other is a rising death toll. Officials in Jamaica said on Thursday that at least 19 people had died in the country, a big jump from the 5 that had been counted the day before. Another 30 have died in neighboring Haiti due to the storm Melissa. One of the locals, Mr. Walker, said that in his community, they have dead bodies lying around. He said he, like many others in the area, still has not heard from family and doesn't know if they made it out of the storm alive. Mr. Walker is stuck in Black River, sleeping in whichever house is still standing that will accept him, while his 8-year-old son is in Westmoreland, the next parish over. Westmoreland shares Jamaica's western coast along the Black River in St. Elizabeth Parish and was also severely damaged by Melissa. Local officials estimate that 90% of the houses here were destroyed. Much out-of-town vitals infrastructure has been destroyed too, including the local hospital, police station, and fire station. Aid supplies are starting to arrive more rapidly at the main airport in the Jamaican capital, Kingston, but smaller regional airports, some located near where humanitarian assistance is most needed, remain only partly operational. Aid agencies and the military are bringing in urgently needed supplies from Kingston by land, but many roads remain impassable in places, including in towns like Black River. The town lies about 2 hours from Kingston, but access remains difficult as the main road is flooded, damaged, and heavily congested with stranded vehicles. Zainab Mohammed reporting for BeeTv News.
Hundreds of people have been killed in Tanzania during 3 days of protests following Wednesday's general election, the country's main opposition party has said. The death toll varies and a nationwide internet shutdown is making it difficult to verify the numbers. The report.
The government has sought to play down the scale of the violence, and authorities have extended a curfew in a bid to quell the unrest. The demonstration have seen mostly young protesters take to the streets in cities across Tanzania to denounce the election as unfair. They accuse the government of undermining democracy by suppressing the main opposition leaders. One is in jail and another was excluded on technical grounds, thus bolstering President Samia Suluhu Hassan's chances of winning with her ruling Chama cha Mapinduzi party. Protests continued on Friday as demonstrators in the port city of Dar es Salaam defied warnings from the army chief to end the unrest. Foreign Minister Mahmoud Kombo Tabit has described the violence as a few isolated pockets of incident here and there, and said security forces acted very swiftly and decisively to address the situation. It has been difficult for journalists and human rights groups to check the reports of deaths, and hospitals have been refusing to give out information when asked about casualties. A source at one hospital in Dar es Salaam told the BBC it had been overwhelmed with casualties since Thursday, and that most public hospitals in the city were in the same position, reportedly with full morgues. One Chadema politician said that he fears for his life as massacres are carried out during night hours when no one is there to witness them. The security forces are tracking down all the leaders, and some have had to leave the country. These people kill with impunity. John Kitoka, Chadema's Director of Foreign and Diaspora Affairs, told the BBC News Hour program. The UN has called on Tanzania's security forces to refrain from using unnecessary force, and foreign ministers from the UK, Canada, and Norway issued a joint statement urging authorities to act with maximum restraint and respect freedom of expression. In Tanzania's semi-autonomous archipelago of Zanzibar, which elects its own government and leader, CCM Hussein Mwinyi, who is the incumbent president, won with nearly 80% of the votes. The opposition in Zanzibar said there had been massive fraud, the AP news agency reported. Tourists on the island are reportedly stranded at the airport, with protests on the mainland and the internet shut down, delaying flights. Official results are expected on Saturday, but President Samia is expected to win under the ruling Chama cha Mapinduzi CCM party, which has governed the country since independence in 1961. She came to power in 2021 as Tanzania's first female president following the death in office of former President John Magufuli. Samia was initially praised for easing political repression, but the political space has since narrowed, with a government accused of targeting critics through arrest and a wave of abduction. There were two main opposition contenders, Tunde Lissu, who is being held on treason charges, which he denies, and Luhaga Mpina of the ACT Wazalendo party, but he was excluded on legal technicalities. 16 fringe parties, none of whom have historically had significant public support, were allowed to run. Evelyn Isabella reporting for BeeTv News.
Some describing the U.S. relocation scheme as racist. The government added that the low number of Afrikaners seeking to relocate to the U.S. shows there is no widespread targeting of white South Africans. The criticism follows President Donald Trump's announcement of a record low annual refugee cap of 7,500. Trump earlier offered refugee status to Afrikaners after South Africa passed a law allowing limited land seizures without compensations. Recent crime data show no increase in attacks against white citizens compared to other racial groups. South African officials have accused Washington of spreading misinformation, noting that images Trump used to support his claims were later proven to be from the Democratic Republic of Congo and unrelated to South Africa. President Samia Suluhu Hassan has been declared the winner of Tanzania's presidential election, securing another term in office amid days of unrest across the country. According to the Electoral Commission, Samia won 98% of the votes, nearly sweeping the 32 million ballot cast in Wednesday's election. International observers have expressed concern over the lack of transparency and widespread turmoil that has reportedly left hundreds of people dead and hundreds injured. The nationwide internet shutdown is making it difficult to verify the death toll. The government has sought to play down the scale of the violence, and authorities have extended a curfew in a bid to quell the unrest. In Tanzania's semi-autonomous archipelago of Zanzibar, which elects its own government and leader, CCM Hussein Mwinyi, who is the incumbent president, won with nearly 80% of the votes. The opposition in Zanzibar said there have been massive fraud, and the AP News Agency reported. Protests continued this Saturday as demonstrators in the port city of Dar es Salaam and other cities took to streets, tearing down Samia's posters and attacking police and police stations, despite warnings from the army chief to end the unrest. The demonstrations are mostly led by young protesters who have denounced the election as unfair. They accuse the government of undermining democracy by suppressing the main opposition leaders. One is in jail and another was excluded from technical grants. Ahead of the election, rights groups condemned government repression, with Amnesty International citing a wave of terror involving enforced disappearances, torture, and extrajudicial killings of opposition figures. The government rejected the claims, and officials said the election would be free and fair. Samia came into office in 2021 as Tanzania's first female president, following the death of President John Magufuli. Two federal high courts in the U.S. have ruled that the Trump administration cannot suspend food aid used by more than 40 million low-income Americans amid the ongoing U.S. government shutdown. The decision issued within moments of each other on Friday by judges in Rhode Island and Massachusetts said the government must pay for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program or SNAP benefits using emergency funds. The report.
The SNAP program works by giving people reloadable debit cards that can be used to buy essential grocery items. The U.S. Department of Agriculture, USDA, announced this week it would not distribute food assistance funds in November due to the shutdown, saying the well has run dry. A family of four, on average, receives $715, 540 euros per month, which breaks down to a little less than $6, 4.50 euros per day per person. The state administered the benefits using money from the federal government, which has been unfunded and shut down since 1st October. Several states have pledged to use their own funds to cover any shortfall. However, the federal government has warned that they will not be reimbursed. Half of U.S. states has sued the Trump administration over its plans to halt funding, hoping to force it to use a roughly $6 billion 4.5 billion euro emergency contingency fund for SNAP, also known as food stamps. The Massachusetts judge said the administration must assess the contingency funding to pay the benefits and had until Monday to report back to the court on whether they will authorize at least partial benefits for November. Massachusetts U.S. District Judge Indira Tawani wrote in her decision that the states who sued are likely to win in court on their claim that Congress intended the funding of SNAP benefits at a reduced rate if necessary when appropriated funds prove insufficient. Judge Tawani also wrote that the Trump administration erred in concluding that the USDA is blocked by law from tapping the emergency reserves in the contingency fund when there is a lapse in federal funding. The USDA had said those reserves were insufficient to pay full benefits, which cost $8.5 billion to $9 billion each month. Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins had said she would only use the fund for an emergency, such as a natural disaster. Even if the government turns to the contingency fund, it will only be able to cover about 60% of beneficiaries in a single month, according to the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, CBPP, a think tank focused on policies that help low-income families. Temitope Oluwafemi reporting for BeeTv News.
This year's FCZs are in place in 3 areas of the city: Paul Shields, Governor Hill and Broomhouse, in a bid to curb disorder over the bonfire night period. Within the zones, it is a criminal offence for a member of the public to set off a firework from the 1st of November to 10th of November. This includes private spaces such as back gardens and in public areas, although sparklers are allowed. It is hoped the move will boost safety disturbances and shield vulnerable residents and animals from loud noises after years of debate surrounding the negative impact of fireworks. On Friday, FCZs came into force in 9 areas in Edinburgh until 9th of November. Police Scotland will enforce the restrictions, and anyone found breaching them could face up to 6 months in prison and a fine of up to £5,000. Pollock Shields has seen disorder on bonfire night in recent years, with locals describing how groups of hooded young men roam the streets firing large fireworks at buildings, cars and people. Glasgow City Council said the introduction of the 3 FCZs received strong support from local residents during a public consultation. A spokesman said they have carefully considered all applications for a control zone along with our partners in the police and fire service and looked closely at the incident data from previous years. People have every right to be fed up with the misuse of fireworks experienced around bonfire nights. Local authorities were given powers to introduce FCZs in 2022 following a major riot in Dundee. City of Edinburgh Council was the first to vote in favour of the zones in August last year. The FCZs in the capital cover Baleno, Carlton Hill, Cotsofine, Gracemount, Longstone, Morden, Niedre, Seafield and Sighthill. Last year's emergency services dealt with significant disorder, which saw police and firefighters targeted with fireworks, bricks and bottles on 5th of November. Parts of Edinburgh and Glasgow were among the worst affected areas. Police Scotland last week launched Operation Moonbeam in its annual public order response to violence and disorder around bonfire nights. The force said more than 60 people were reported for their alleged involvement in fireworks offences last year. This year, it is dedicating more resources than ever to tackling crimes involving fireworks. Many officers, including those in the Tayside and Edinburgh areas, will be equipped with body-worn video cameras. Local authorities were given the option to ban the use of fireworks after MSPs passed the Fireworks and Pyrotechnic Articles Act in 2022. Harmony Agba for reporting for BeeTv News.
More than 60,000 people have fled the Sudanese city of El Fasher after it was captured by the Rapid Support Forces following an 18-month siege, according to the UN Refugee Agency. The report.
Witnesses and survivors have reported mass execution, rape and other atrocities as RSF fighters took control of the city, which had been the army's last stronghold in Darfur. The UN says about 150,000 civilians remain trapped amid severe shortage of food, water and medical supplies. UNHCR spokesperson Eugene Bion said those fleeing to Tawila, about 80 kilometers away, are suffering extreme malnutrition, especially children. Aid agencies are struggling to provide adequate shelter and relief. The RSF has denied accusation of ethnically motivated killings, confirmed the arrest of one fighter, Abu Lulu, after being linked to execution of unarmed men. Sudan has been in civil war since April 2023, when fighting erupted between the RSF and the National Army. The conflict has killed more than 150,000 people, displaced 12 million, and deepened famine across the country. With El Fasher's war, the RSF now controls Western Sudan and much of the Kordofan, while the army restrained the capital, Khartoum, and the eastern regions. Favor Kolawole reporting for BeeTv News.
Between Atlanta and Marrakech, reportedly marking a historic milestone for the United States carrier and a major step forward in US-Morocco connectivity. Let's join BeeTv News Temitope Oluwafemi for more details from the business world.
Operated by a Boeing 767-400ER, the inaugural flight landed at Marrakesh Menara Airport on October 26, inaugurating a new 3 times a week service that links Morocco's Red City to more than 125 U.S. destinations via Delta's global hub in Atlanta, according to a statement by the company. With the launch, Delta becomes the first U.S. airline to operate a non-stop route between Atlanta and Marrakesh, boosting business, leisure, and cultural exchanges between both countries. The new service, it was said, also represented Delta's latest entry into North Africa, adding Marrakesh to its African network alongside Accra, Lagos, Dakar, Cape Town, and Johannesburg. Business tech leaders examine AI data cloud. South Africa's business leaders, technology experts, and SAP partners gathered in Johannesburg on Thursday to examine how cloud, data, and artificial intelligence innovations are transforming enterprises and creating new growth opportunities. Managing Director, Southern Africa at SAP, Nazia Pillay, say in a statement that South African organizations were at a turning point. Tech skills development has gained renewed attention as companies compete for skilled workers capable of unlocking the potential of AI and other emerging technologies. Research conducted by SAP found that 9 in 10 African organizations are already suffering negative effects from a lack of AI skills, including failed innovation projects, delayed implementations, and inability to take on new work. Dangote Refinery promises steady fuel supply, says output exceeds demand. The Dangote Petroleum Refinery has pledged a steady supply of petrol and diesel nationwide during the upcoming festive period, as its daily output now exceeds Nigeria's consumption capacity. The Group Chief Branding and Communications Officer of Dangote Industries Limited, Attorney Chejina, said in a statement made available to the Punch Online on Saturday that the refinery currently dispenses over 45 million litres of petrol and 25 million litres of diesel daily. He noted that increased domestic refining has helped stabilize the naira by reducing foreign exchange outflows and supporting local currency inflows. Defending the government's new tariff policy, Chejina described it as a necessary measure to shield local industries from unfair foreign competition and product dumping. Temitope Oluwafemi reporting for BeeTv News.
And that'll be all on our 12 p.m. news. Thank you for joining. I am Ruth Ogbodu. Goodbye for now.